Hey guys, do you have failure in the past propagating plants from stem cuttings? This is Marcelina at cashewgreens.com, and I will show you some major problems why your cuttings fail. So stick with me, be right back. Hello happy YouTubers, welcome back. Marcelina here with me, and I am with Greg Stevens.
Greg Stevens here. I'm just going to be in the background. I'm not going on video today. I'm just going to be the silent partner.
The silent partner. So this video is based on the questions I received from the viewers. The question, why do my cuttings fail? What do I do to make it work? And what did I do wrong? Now, Greg Stevens, I'm asking you, why? Why cuttings fail? Can you give me another? Can you give me a reason for that?
Well, I'm going to give you one right off the top of my head.
Okay.
Some are easier to propagate than others. I mentioned this in one of the other videos that we used to have a rose that was very difficult to propagate. In fact, we bought it from a nursery up in Canada. We ordered 5 of them, and all 5 of them came with some disease in them, and they apologized to us for them, and they said they had one heck of a hard time propagating this rose and gave us 5 $10 off coupons for future purchases. And we lost the last one last year. And we just could not get this thing, not one time. I bet you we did 20 different cuttings from that black Bacara rose, and not one single time did we ever get it to root. And the reason why we didn't do a marketing with that particular plant is we couldn't get a healthy stem to try it with.
So we will talk about that. So you're talking about that some plants
are
do
easier
well,
to propagate
easy to
than
propagate,
others from cuttings.
while others, are not.
Yeah.
And which is true. So choosing the right cultivar. But in roses, some of the roses are easy to root, while others not easy to root. So
talking about roses, which one of your roses do you find is the easiest to propagate?
Well, the easiest to propagate is the knockout.
Knockouts.
Knockout is easy.
You don't even have to use sterilization on your tools. You don't have to use cloning boxes. You just take a cutting and stick it in the dirt.
But I will mention that. So my other reason why your cuttings fail is timing, and a lot of people don't pay attention about the wrong timing and why it is so important, because some of the cuttings from certain plants prefer to take cuttings in the fall or in the spring or in summer or in the winter, while others don't. And give you an example for that is the hydrangea. I did an experiment with the hydrangea cuttings in the mid-summer, and I took 50 cuttings. I even put the cuttings on Fagpanics, so I have this good supply of water.
I remember one of my favorite hydrangea. It was beautiful shape. It come out. It was ball-headed hydrangea. The whole thing had been cut to hell because she took all the cuttings from this thing. The plant nearly died as a result because she took too many cuttings off, and none of the cuttings propagated.
Did you know that all of those 50 cuttings failed?
Yeah, I know.
Yes, it was. So the failure alone put me into a huge frustration, and I was wondering why. What did I do wrong? What should I do in the next time, to be able to achieve higher success? So I did another cuttings, and I took the cuttings in the fall, and in that month I finally achieved a higher success rate. So I found that propagating hydrangea cuttings do well when you take it in the fall. So that is the best. If you take cuttings of hydrangea and root them in summer, you have less success doing that.
So is it before or after they bloom is better?
It doesn't matter. Hydrangea,
matter?
it doesn't matter. It's not the same as rose that you have to wait until it blooms. Now, what would be the next reasons why it's failing?
Another reason why it would fail is too much moisture in your propagation. If you're sticking them in too much soil, soil with too much water in it, you're risking fungus, bacteria infection. That would be another reason right
So
there.
that
Too
would be
much water.
environmental
Yeah, that's
condition.
if you're
That's
using
another.
a media, you want to have something first of all that drains very well. You want to have a lot of perlite, cocoa core, maybe some sand mixed in with it, and that tends to be probably the best mixed media right there. Is using those
Sand.
three.
Sand. Some people do sand propagation.
That's why I like our cloning boxes that we use that are made out of cedar wood on the sides, and then it has the mesh screen on the bottom, so all the water just runs right out. It wets the soil, keeps it moist, but not it doesn't let the cutting sit in standing
Yeah.
water.
So the feeling is that the environment where you stick your cuttings. So when you think of cuttings, if you look at the cuttings, it's unrooted. So what is needed here is water. So you need to supply that water. So it is necessary that you control the environment. So
Can I tell them another secret?
what is it?
We discovered a while back that neem is an antifungal. If your cuttings are being attacked because there's too much water and fungus infection, take some neem powder, not the oil, but take some of the neem powder and mix it right in with your media, and that way when you put your
Stick.
cuttings in there, you're gonna find a higher success rate because you're not going to be dealing with so much fungus.
Yeah, that's
The neem
true.
oil kills the fungus.
That's true. So you can apply neem powder to avoid, disease. And what I did, I used the alcohol. I spray on the top. Like if I cut on the top, I spray alcohol. Or you can also use hydrogen peroxide and soap
True,
your.
but don't
soap
forget
your-
also that's where you make your initial cutting. But alcohol evaporates very, very quickly. And
That's
it's not going to
true,
be
yeah,
there for a
that's
long
true.
term. Where the neem powder, if you mix it with your media when you're preparing it, it's going to be right in the soil.
How about putting the neem on the top? Don't you think it's a good
I've
idea?
seen people dip it in wax to keep anything from getting in there. That works real well. You can put neem or cinnamon on the top of it, but the wax is probably the best. You just get a little certain type of wax I use for that. I can't think what it's called, sealing wax or something. You just dip it right in
Dip
there,
it in there, and
and then
it's
when it dries or cools off, it forms a nice little protective cap on top of it.
One of the problem, one of the problems you see propagating roses is the black, turning black. That's because of the fungus. And one of the other reasons, technique, your technique. If you are using unsterilized pruner, or if you don't apply sterilization, it will happen that the fungal growth would,
Have
go
you
in.
ever noticed when you go to a nursery in the spring, before the branches and your stems start to break out on your rows, that when they harvest them from the field, they cut them down to maybe 6 inches or so or above the crown, and then they dip the whole entire plant in wax, the entire plant in wax, and then when the new shoots come out, they emerge from the wax.
Mostly
So
mostly
is
nursery.
is that to protect
Nursery.
the rows from what?
By
From
dipping
cross-contaminating. Maybe a
contamination,
plant, another rose has an infection, it can't cross over to that one because it's dipped in wax.
or the other reason for that, by waxing the cut, is to prevent moisture loss. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Because
So it serves two purposes.
yeah, two purpose there. So select your varieties when you do the cuttings, and sterilize your propagation site, sterilize your pruners. You don't want any fungus that transfer from your pruner to the cutting. And sometimes it happened one time that I did my propagation
Just
turning
one time?
black. Many times. Many times. Yeah, that the stem turning black, and that was the cause of fungus, because fungus can live in every week, and you just don't realize when you take the cutting. It seems good, but within few weeks it's starting to either to start on the top and then go
If you
down,
have
or
if you
below.
have a systemic disease in that plant, and when you cut one of the stems off and you see this brown pith inside, you know that plant is diseased.
Yeah, this
And
is.
you might have a stem that looks like it's clean and free of
Yeah,
disease.
like this one
but,
here. Yeah.
But inside of it, if it's a systemic
It's
disease,
systemic, yeah.
it's gonna
Yeah,
rot out
yeah.
too, because you've stressed it now that since you took that cutting. Here, since you're also talking about the dehydration of the cutting, how about the size of the cutting that you're taking?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's another thing. So the size of selecting the size of the cuttings too large, it's not good to take. Sometimes it is tempted to take a larger cane, but I would recommend to take the cutting that is a smaller cane, at least closer to a pencil. Like this one here, this is a good cutting.
That's perfect.
Perfect. This is
Perfect
perfect,
size.
and it is a new growth from last year, and it is a little bit firm. So this is the cutting that you are more likely to be able to root and be successful. Now,
If it's too thin,
it is too thin.
what happens to that
If it is too thin, it wilt so
wilt?
fast.
Because
So the
losing
larger
too much,
cutting,
it's
avoid
losing
to
too much
yeah,
moisture.
avoid larger cane, because it is also taking too long to root the cuttings because of the larger space, and it takes
How long would you
energy.
how long would you tell your viewers it would take for that to start rooting?
Well, depending on your propagation site and what agent you're using. If you just stick this one in the soil or in a propagation without hormones, so it takes off by using the natural plant hormone, which is taking a little bit longer. So you have to I use Clonix gel, and I will show it to you guys. To stick with me, because after this episode, I will show you how to propagate plants using the best technique to help you achieve good result. So now, grade 7, I remember until today, you prepared cuttings that is longer. And can you explain why? And I will.
Yes.
Why do you prepare long cuttings?
Marcelina likes 4 to 6 inch. I like 6 to 9 inch cuttings, because once my cutting has propagated and starts to produce shoots, it produces a young plant that is much more attractive, and somebody is likely to want it or buy it. Marcelina's cuttings are so small that I look at it and I say, what a little piece of crap that is, when even if it starts to survive and leaves start to emerge. I just like a slightly larger new plant when
New
it starts
plants,
to grow.
because you want that full established.
Yes, I want it to
I will
look
give
more like
you.
a plant.
I will back up with that, because the ideal length of cuttings should be at least 6 inches long, and this is the ideal cut. Now, if you take
That's my size cutting. That's the size
your-
that I
so
like.
you said it is
when
longer. This is
no,
6 inches.
No, it's not. You need to learn your measurements. That's a good that's a good 10 inches. Okay, that's
No,
10
this is
inches
not.
long.
Okay, maybe 8 inches.
No.
8 inches. This is 8 inches.
Your cuttings, you would
1,
probably
2,
get 3
3,
cuttings out
4,
of that
5.
little piece.
No, 8 inches. So preferably it is 6.
Well, that's
6
still
inches.
large.
So
That's
this
still
is
a large cutting by your standards.
No, this is
You
perfect.
like 4 to 6. I've worked with you a lot.
So we have different views. Now, if you take longer cuttings, what will happen is that the cuttings tend to wilt easily, and also it stresses out easily. And it takes a while for the root to develop, because of the energy is a longer distance to travel from the bottom, from the top all the way down. So I would suggest take a little bit shorter cuttings, and most people do cuttings like 4 inches, and I prefer 6 inches. So it depends upon how long you take the cuttings, but I would recommend to take 6 inches long. Now here, if you do the cutting, you take the cut 45-degree angle. It make it closer to the node, because if you cut closer to the node, it is easier to work that area, and also it's a lot of concentration of hormones, and you can easily root. So he's not really sure. He's going to measure, guys. Oh my gosh, that's 10
10 inches right on the nose. Damn, am I good?
So we will cut this again, he did not, he did not agree with my
I know my measurements. I work with wood a lot.
I can tell. So this is 10 inches, so cut a little bit Repeat it. This is too long.
A minute ago it was perfect.
Perfect. Yeah. So now, most cuttings you might probably prefer to leave few leaves and just small leaves to photosynthesize. So I prepared without leaves. If I can strip the leaves, and I will show you guys. The reason why I strip the cuttings, because it stimulates root development and also it stimulates new shoots. And as you can see, look at that. Look at that. This is my cutting, and I don't want to disturb it. Is rooting, and as you can see, it produces new foliage because I take out leaves. So I can strip this. You strip all the leaves.
Does the PP on that thing mean pretty pathetic?
So if you can, try stripping the cuttings.
How about the
because
thorns? You take the thorns off? I like to take the thorns off.
you know what? The thorn is a protection.
Yeah, protection, but it
Protection of
doesn't
the-
protect me.
Doesn't protect you. So you be careful because there
Yeah,
is
you can
a
get
fungus.
infection. Yeah, you can get
There is a
infected easy.
fungus present in the plants that when you freak it, is they call that.
But
I
you know,
couldn't
you don't
remember.
have to cut the whole thorn off.
Trichotrosis?
You can just cut the sharpness of the thorn off,
Phytotrosis?
like cut it in half.
What do you mean?
Just take your cutters like this. hand it
Hold
to-
on. Let me. I don't want you to.
I'm not going to cut into
I
the
don't
plant.
trust you.
Oh, come on.
Okay. All right. So
Here, let me show you. What I do is I like to at least come in here like this and snip that sharp tip off of there.
yeah.
But I didn't break the stem
Yeah.
or cut into it to allow infection to get in there.
That's so I tried to avoid, you try to avoid removing the thorn because when you remove it, that's an opening in there. So it
How about the type of cut? Some people do a 45. Some people like to slash and remove an inch or
45
so.
and go like that.
Yeah,
closer
a lot
to
of
the
people
node.
they take a knife and they like to remove like an inch of the outer bark or the
That's
skin on
that's
there.
a technique to.
Some of them smash
to
it with a
encourage.
hammer on the end to create more
You know,
area
I
space.
did that. I did that smashing, and I found out smashing, guys. I would not do that again because it really create injury to the plant, and instead of creating root, it is a tendency to get infected. So I would get back
Shy
with
away
that.
from
So
that?
shy away
Yeah.
from that. So don't
Okay.
smash because it creates too much injury. But you can. I also noticed. Remember, I
I've
do
seen people take a knife and they cut it in half. They cut the cutting
Like-
at the
like-
tip.
like, for example,
yeah, they
like
split
that?
it right up the middle like that. Yeah.
that you can do it
Yeah.
because you have you break in half. So this one is going to force the cutting to root. But smashing it, I would
What
take
about
that
what
back.
about the location of where you're making that 45-degree angle cut? Where you're using the node, right?
It
Where's
has to be
show me where
closer.
the node is on
This
there
is
for
the
those that
node.
don't know what a
Like,
node is.
Yeah, the node is in here. This is the node, guys. So if you can cut
Where's
closer
the
to
next
that,
Where's the next node above that?
the next
Show them
node,
the next node
there's the node in here.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to have a successful cutting, to root the cuttings, it is best if you do 4 nodes,
Right.
at least 4 nodes,
Right.
and then when you bury it, I will show it to you later on, guys, how to do it. When you bury the cuttings, I prepared to bury half of the cutting.
So you
in
want
the
to bury
soil.
2 nodes underground?
Yes,
At
because
least 2, right?
at least
It
2
ensures
because
better
it
rooting. And it also prevents moisture loss by burying 2 out
that
of the-
is the reason why you bury it, because
Right.
it keep that moisture locks in. So that's the reason. So the feeling it is based on the type of cuttings you choose. Some plants they take off by tip cutting, some
Yeah.
plants I did that a lot of time. So you just do the trial and error, and by doing that you will find success in
Now,
your
if you're talking about
propagation.
rooting hormones, there's liquid, dip and grow. That's one, and then there's another one that's a powder, and then they have the gels. I know we've tried the liquid dip and grow. I didn't care for that one, and the reason is that we didn't leave it in there. You have to leave it in there for, I don't know, like a couple hours or something until it absorbs and and draws it up into the stem. The powder I like better, but we really like is the Clonex gel, the indolbutyric acid, which is a 3% concentration. seems to be work really well.
Okay. So to factor all of this, so why your cuttings fail? Number one, choosing the, choosing the plants,
The type of
the
plant.
type of plants. Number two, the technique. Your technique, you have to sterilize pruner because it would, if you don't, it will promote fungus and
Can
it
you
ruins.
can you root all plants from cuttings?
Some plants do, but sometimes some plants are hard to root. So you have to, so if you have a problem rooting the cuttings, you have to approach different methods. I would suggest to use air layering because that is the method that will give you 100%
Yeah,
success.
if you're having difficulty with a particular
Mm-hmm.
variety of plant
Yeah.
by getting it to root by cuttings, next try the marketing technique,
Yeah,
air
marketing
layering.
technique air layering.
Yeah.
So well, we cannot say that we cannot always be successful. If you succeed, it would not be a true success, right? You have to fail. So learn from your mistake.
Yeah.
I did a lot of mistakes. I did a lot of failures,
Yeah.
and I also
Yeah,
learned from that
failure
failures.
is a stepping stone to
Yeah.
success. It's a
So just
you don't fail. It's just another lesson on how not to do it the next time.
So I will show you. So what else did we cover already? Wrong technique,
Temperature.
temperature control, and also the watering because
Mhm.
and then selecting the proper steam. And if you follow all these factors, you probably get a higher percentage rate. And I'm going to show you the techniques. So
What about the
to help
media
you.
that you use for your cuttings? Do you recommend them to be underneath a dome? Do you want to create air ventilation, or do you want to keep them sealed up?
Well, we do a lot of propagation here and we use different propagator. Now, there is a difference. Some plants prepare to be propagated in water, prepare in the sun, prepare in a mix, and it doesn't matter, you
I've
know.
I've noticed that plants that are more on the viney type of plant, like some of your Hoyas and stuff like that, you can just stick those in a glass of water. In a couple
Yeah,
of weeks, they start
yeah.
producing roots. All
So
of
I
your
would not do much of that in about the mix because if you do the cuttings, you can use different media as long that the cuttings are not prone to waterlog, are not prone to what else that you can think of, like drying out. So you have to monitor, control the environment of that propagation.
heat mat, yes or no?
I use heat mat if I propagate winter, but the problem is that if you do winter time, it takes longer, even if you use heat mat.
LED lights too.
Because they're not active. So I would prepare either do it in the fall, summer, and spring. So you can use any kind of media. I love microgreens because it has a combination between perlites, uh, peat peat moss, and cocoa peat, and
Sphagnum and perlite.
yes, and I think there is also vermiculite. So vermiculite is retaining that moisture, and then the perlite have that ability of giving airspace to the cutting. So let's go ahead, guys, and I will show you the method. So
Here, let me show you this.
okay,
Here's your,
I think I showed this
hold that
before.
on your lap.
So this is the microgreens, guys, and it is a good soil is mixed to root the cuttings. And it has a lot of combination. There is,
It
there
has
is a,
sphagnum peat moss, perlite, cocoa fiber, and hypum peat moss with dolomite limestone buffer for pH.
oh, that's good.
That's
So
why
it
it's so
balances the pH. It balances the pH. All right, so let's go ahead and do the propagation, and I will show you guys the techniques to help you achieve high rate success of propagation. So
Okay, the first thing we want to do is start preparing the stem, and we're going to show you exactly where the bud is. We want to sanitize the cutting first with the alcohol, prepare the area. We're going to cut this at a 45-degree angle, about a half an inch below the node. We're going to prepare it with some Clonex, some indole-butyric acid in a gel form. This stuff is really good. I really recommend this of all of them. This is the Microgreen Plus rooting media. I'm going to insert that down. We're going to place about 2 nodes under the surface there to retain as much moisture in that cutting as we can. We want to give it some water moisture. We don't want to give it too much. We want this to drain very well. I'm going to put the hood over top of it, maintain as much moisture and heat inside as we can. Want to attain it about 70-75 degrees. And this is what that flower is going to look like when it starts to blooming. This was one that we did about 3 months ago. We put these cuttings in the cloning box, and we're just going to dig these out. The roots actually go below the screen down below. They don't want to come out. They're very, very happy being in the cloning box. And it's a ball full of roots. We're going to put this in a little banded pot. You can tell how deeply rooted these plants are, how hard they don't want to come up. They're very happy living their life in this cloning box. Look at that. That's amazing. All from a cutting. A lot of the roots broke off pulling them up, so we're gonna treat these with some Mycorrhizae to help prevent transplant shock. And that can happen whenever you're disrupting the root system. This is the Mycorrhizae. It's a beneficial fungus that we actually sprinkle right onto the roots, and it protects them against other harmful bacteria or fungus that can cause the plant to die. We had a lot of problem with this years ago, with losing a lot of our roses when we transplanted them, and when we found out about the Mycorrhizae, we maintain about 9 out of 10 plants thrive after we transplant now. Drastically improved our success rate. We use it on every plant that we transplant, whether from roses to lemons, pothos, you name it. We use it on everything. We're going to introduce some 2020 fertilizer to this plant. This really helps them take off. They've gotten some fertilization while they were in the greenhouse, but this really gives them a super boost.
Alright guys, this is for today, and we hope this video helped you. If you have any question, write your comments below. And also, thank you for watching. This is Marcelina at CashewGreens.com. See you next time. Peace out.